Ready? Yeah. Like so? Okay. We're going to call to order this Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Is it? Okay.
Do we have a motion before we call roll to excuse Mr. Katie?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Okay, we want to, next order on the agenda is review and the approval of meeting minutes. We've got two meeting minutes, one from February 1st, 2022. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to those minutes?
Move to accept the minutes as transcribed.
Second.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
We've got the, the meeting minutes dated March 17th, 2022. Do we have any corrections or additions or changes to those?
Move to approve as transcribed.
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Okay, before we move into the next item, I just want to give everybody a kind of an order of agenda, what we're going to do here tonight. So we've got three different items on the agenda. There's the mobile food vending special exemption. There's a public hearing for that, and we have one person signed up for that I'm aware of. If anyone else has signed up, then you may have signed up on the wrong sheet. So we're going to run into that. That's a public hearing. Then we've got open forum, and we're going to actually have, I'm going to break the open forum up into two segments. We're going to have open forum for the new business, which is the Oak Street Special Planning District request. And then we're going to open it up for old business again. We're going to discuss that, and then we'll open it up for old business with public open forum for the DREs. So we're going to do it that way so everybody knows, and I'll try to guide you through as we go through this so everybody gets a chance to talk. I will ask too, we had the public hearing for DREs St. Patrick's Day actually, everybody was wearing green. If you're here to comment, and if you want to speak, that's fine. Everybody's welcome to speak again. But just please, anything that's additional that you would like to comment on, if you've already spoken about it and made your points on certain items, we've already heard those in the public hearing before, so we've taken note of those. Again, you're welcome to speak, and we're not saying you can't speak. We just want to try to keep it to what new information or new ideas or new thoughts or new comments you might have. I also want to make the comment, please, that I want to keep this as there's a lot of people here, so I'd like to keep this very respectful, so that when anyone is speaking at the podium, please, I don't want any noise from the crowd, any comments, anything at all. We want to listen to because we can't hear if other people are talking. We want to hear everybody's comments, whether it be from the developers or somebody else or from the public. And I would ask the same when we are in a closed meeting here. It's open to the public, obviously, but we're in discussions, that everybody would please be quiet so we can discuss amongst ourselves and talk so we can hear each other. So keep any comments like that. We want to keep this very professional. We appreciate everybody's. This is great that the community is this engaged in anything. Sometimes we're here and there's nobody to talk to. So we appreciate everybody showing up, but we want to make sure everybody can be heard and can be listened to. So with that said, we need a motion to, we're going to move into the public hearing for the case number 2203. Special request or special exemption, for the mobile food vending unit. Do we have a motion to move into public hearing for that?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond.
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Could we hear from the city on the background of this case?
Thank you, sir. With regard to case number 2022-03, this is a request for special exception for a parcel located at 118 Carl Brown Way. This is a special exception to accommodate a mobile food truck vendor at this location, which, as the commission may or may not be aware, is the future home of Hops and Berry, which is the newest addition to downtown Loveland. Special exceptions are regulated per Part 11, Sections 111107 through 111108 of the Planning and Zoning Code for the City of Loveland. The application and site plan materials were provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission in advance of this proceeding. This application would allow, if approved, the applicant to regularly place a food truck vendor or have an established location for a food truck vendor adjacent to their beer garden and patio area. As I mentioned, the property is currently under development, and we believe that there will be an opening soon. The applicant asserts in their materials that they provided that no adjacent property will be negatively impacted because the proposed food truck vendors will be required to utilize their own resources to operate. Additionally, trash enclosure is provided on the subject property, and the parking will be situated entirely on the private parking area adjacent to their outdoor seating area. With regard to special exceptions, the definitions portion of the Planning and Zoning Code regulates what a special exception or defines special exception as an additional use that can be considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission for placement within a particular zoning district pursuant to Section 111107. Additionally, mobile food vendors are also defined in the Zoning Code, which talks about individuals, corporations, or partnerships or other entities which sell food and beverages from a temporary mobile non-motorized wagon, cart, trailer, or motorized vehicle, which is designed to be readily movable and placed on a public or privately owned lot where the food items are sold to the general public. And for the Commission's reference, we've also provided the special exception regulations, and I won't belabor the details on those. They're fairly lengthy, but essentially there's several general standards for special exceptions and then some specific standards that are rules that apply to mobile food vendors as regulated in the special exceptions portion of the code. Specifically, the code states that special exception uses should be harmonious in accordance with the general objectives of the code, designed and constructed and operated and maintained to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, will not be hazardous or disturbing neighboring uses, served adequately by essential public facilities, shall not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community, shall not have a negative impact within 300 feet of the proposed site, will not involve uses or processes that are detrimental to persons or property. The special exception does not create significant or excess demand for municipal services. It's consistent with the spirit of the comprehensive master plan, and it complies with specific standards relative to the category of special exception use requested. We are in the public hearing phase of the process. The customary public notice was provided, along with notice to parties in interest. The action required is within 35 days of this hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission should approve or shall approve with supplementary conditions or disapprove the application. And there is some other specific standards for mobile food vendors, and there's 17 of those. Regarding a relationship to adopted planning documents, the Downtown Strategic Master Plan for the City of Loveland indicates that this area downtown is primed for redevelopment and recommends the establishment of uses supportive of a vibrant, active downtown area. The plan also identifies the need for infill patios and planting areas in the vicinity of this particular project. The proposed mobile food vendor at Hops and Berry will aid in the creation of or add to the excitement of the outdoor dining area already operated in conjunction with the taproom use that's proposed for the site. As such, it is consistent with the recommendations of the Downtown Strategic Master Plan. The proposed use is also congruent with prior comprehensive land use plans for the city because it results in adaptive reuse of existing commercial space adjacent to the Little Miami Bike Trail, promoting economic vitality within the downtown district. This vendor should draw additional customers and foot traffic to the facility, and it will strengthen and enhance the connection and relationship between the trail and this block of Carl Brown Way. Regarding the specific proposal, this will appear to be a supportive accessory use to the primary use of the tap room, and basically will support additional dining opportunities on this side of West Loveland Avenue. The food truck vendor does meet the general requirements of 11-1107 and the special exception uses. It does not appear to generate excess demand for services, excess smoke or odors, or traffic, and will not have any apparent impact negatively on adjacent or nearby property. It does not appear detrimental to economic welfare and does not appear to be hazardous, and it minimizes any vehicular and pedestrian conflict because of the placement of the food truck in relation to the beer garden patio area as opposed to occupying parking area on site. So with that, the action required, as I previously discussed, the recommendation is the Planning and Zoning Commission approve this request to establish a mobile food vendor at the Hobsonberry Tap Room located at 118 Carl Brown Way as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have any, we have Kevin Egan signed up. Kevin? Okay. You would like to approach the podium and please state your name and address so we can get it on the record.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Egan. With 6612.
Is that mic on?
Yeah, it should be on. Is the red light on? Hit the button. It's on now.
Is it green?
I can hear it.
While she's doing that, I'll remind everybody there's a light system here when you're also speaking that it's green. You've got 5 minutes to speak, and it'll turn yellow when you have a few seconds left, and then red when the 5 minutes is up. So.
I think the mic's.
I can just speak up.
I need it. I can't get up.
Yeah, we have to.
It's here.
Um,
Hey, Corey, I got it.
Yellow? Oh, is it unplugged?
Thanks, Dave.
I checked the wrong side. Sorry.
Okay, is that better?
Hit the
Nope.
red light. Green light.
Now is that okay?
Now we,
There.
All right.
Kevin, is there a way to raise it? No.
That's all right.
It's good.
That's all right.
Okay.
please do your name and address again so we.
Yeah, Kevin Egan, 6612 Branch Hill Guinea Pike, Loveland. And for those that I don't know, I'm also part of the ownership group at Paxton's Grill and Ramsey's Trailside. The comments that I'm making tonight are specific towards the property at 118 Carl Brown Way request, but also a general position that we hold for the historic downtown Loveland area in general. Bottom line, we're against food trucks in the area. We understand with those currently in the area, like Narrow Path and Cappy's, they've been brought in over the years to help facilitate their growing businesses that have been there for years now and then are thriving. I look forward to patronizing Hobsonberry's, but if Hobsonberry's wanted to have food available, they should have built a kitchen. There are 10 to 12 restaurants, depending upon who's open. We still have a few out there that are behind craft paper windows, but currently in the historic downtown area within blocks of Hobsonberry that have invested significant monies to be in this area to sell food. That is not an investment that is recovered quickly or easily or without risk. The ability to roll a food truck in and take advantage of what has taken years of effort to build and develop and take business away from the existing establishments, in our opinion, is not fair, should be allowed. One of the reasons behind bringing in a food truck is so that you can attract more people to a specific area. We know from years past that historic Loveland does not have a problem attracting people, and the addition of another food truck would only intensify the most significant problem that we have, and that's parking. A food truck doesn't take up just a single space. So on behalf of Paxton's and Ramsey's 100 plus employees who pay taxes in the city, and all the real estate owners in the area who've invested millions of dollars over the years and pay taxes to this area, I would ask that you respectfully decline the request and any future requests for food trucks to be able to roll into this area. I wish Hops and Berries nothing but tremendous success, and they should know that their patrons will have a tremendous selection of wonderful restaurants that are already here in the downtown area to choose from for their dining needs. Thank you.
Do we have anyone from
Hops and Berries.
Hops and Berries here to speak? Yeah.
Hello, Jeremy Pope, 1100 Redbird Road, Loveland. One of the owners of Hops and Berry. Very excited about being able to come to the area. I already have a business that's run here at the mortgage company across from Bishop's Quarter. So excited to expand upon that. Loveland's my home. So we feel as if, you know, there was a comment made about parking. It is actually the proposed plan is that it doesn't interfere with any parking at all. There are no spots that would be missing. And I totally understand the whole parking issue, right? We all do. And we feel that it would be a good addition to our patrons in the city. And it was just something that was not something that was, something we wanted to just kind of throw together. It wasn't something that's kind of, I'm very comfortable with kind of the food service part of it. So we wanted to essentially kind of take our time with that, make sure we were doing that right. And, I don't think that our plans are to have, food trucks forever. At all. That's not, it's just an extra service that we want to provide. And I think it helps keep our patrons safer,
Do we have any questions that you want to, anybody here want to ask while he's up? Sure. Go ahead.
Is the intention for this to be a single food truck that visits or is stationary there and remains, as complementary part of the business that is identified with that, or would this be some sort of rotation of different food truck vendors?
So it's definitely one at a time. I think our thoughts were to give different food trucks and vendors an opportunity to showcase what they put together for Loveland. We're thinking about a rotational basis, just to provide options for patrons and also to, give them an opportunity instead of having just one.
Did we have a question?
I have a question. So the people that come for the food truck, is the idea that they bring their food into your establishment?
Yes. So either at the beer garden or coming inside, and of course they're welcome to grab food and explore the Dora zone as well. Go to the park, whatever they want. I mean, there'll be no restrictions of you use the food trucks and now you got to sit down.
Well, no, my question was more along the lines of building code. So your fixture counts based upon your occupancy and how many employees you have. Mm-hmm. And now those people are going to be using your fixtures. And so I just don't know if that's been explored at all.
Well, I mean, we have only so much seating, of course. So that's been all worked out with, capacity. Our intention is not to bring more capacity, of course. But there's lots of seating along the bike trail as well. And, kind of the park, right? So I think they'll be okay with, if they can't if we're at full capacity, then it just kind of is what it is. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay.
Thanks.
If you talked to your neighbors, the trailside provisions, what's their thoughts on this?
Absolutely. We've talked to them. I talk to Vicky multiple times a week. And she is excited about a new business and bringing more customers down so she can benefit from that as well. I think most of these food trucks would be operating outside of those hours anyway. So, Montgomery Cyclery and Trailside Provisions will either be at the very end of their day or already gone. So I don't think it should cause any disturbances. And both have expressed, I think they're both excited about it, both of those businesses.
Are there any other food trucks operating in Loveland currently?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
There are, as it is permitted as a special exception, Ben at Cappy's has gone through the process, and so has Chad at Narrow Path.
What about Chili Hut? No.
He doesn't.
Operate his food truck either.
Right.
I think
Questions for? No. Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Is anyone else signed up? I don't see anybody, so if that's the case, we will have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
All right. So, any thoughts?
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Kressler.
Decades ago, when I was here, we started the food truck kind of as a thought of temporary facilities at different places that they got going. And I think Cappy's was the first, as I remember. And it kind of is turning into like a permanent thing. Originally, I thought the thing was it would be a temporary. So to me, it's raising a philosophical question. Do we want to have food trucks at a location forever, or do we allow it for the first 3 years, at which point they can no longer do it? So that's, I can see the viewpoint of the other restaurants and food service places in the downtown, that these things are proliferating. So maybe we need to talk to council about setting it. There's right now it's a 1 year, but should there be a 1 year renewable up to X number of times? So my inclination for this would be right now to turn it down until we get feedback from council what they feel we should be doing long term. Just my thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, Mr. Kressler, I similarly am along those same lines. I think that the exception, as I might interpret the spirit of it, is similar to my question to the applicant was, is this going to be some sort of special occasion, some sort of rotation? I think that's, to me, maybe more the spirit of mobile vending versus the, put the thing up on cinder blocks and there it sits, forever. So I would agree with you, but I don't know that I think looking at this, looking at the code might be a way to address those concerns, but I don't know that at this point is the right time to draw the line there. But it does raise some questions. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would chime in and say that I think the intent when we looked at this, I don't know how many years ago, was the food trucks were not intended to replace a restaurant. In essence, they were supposed to supplement any food service and vending that was here. And so I don't, I think it's become another another location for a restaurant, and I don't think that was ever our intent. We certainly don't want to create, a world of food trucks and no permanent restaurants here. So I kind of lean with Al in terms of having to. I think we need to relook at this before we approve anything like this. Kind of revisit this, the thought process on this.
The other thought is we could approve this one and have council then put a freeze on any future ones until they set new rules. And since these are renewable yearly, there could be a non-grandfathered clause in there. So if you have to renew yearly, technically you have to come back before us every year. So, we could approve this one with the understanding that council will address how long they can be, how many times they can be renewed.
Yeah, it does. Right now it says it expires 1 year from the date of issue. When would be the issue?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Could you pull your microphone up a little bit? That we're having trouble hearing in the back of the room.
That better?
That's from all of you.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
The cord's only so long. There we go. I can hear myself now. Okay.
Everybody can hear me. Thank you.
There you go. That better? Okay.
I mean, from a point of order, it says here within 35 days after the required hearing, we can approve with supplementary conditions. So, could we take this back as a sort of conversation, and then at our next P&Z meeting make the recommendation?
But it would certainly, and again, our solicitors here with us, but that's what the code says. So
Yeah.
provided we have a planning and zoning code within, or a planning and zoning commission meeting within that required 35-day timeline, you could theoretically take this under advisement and issue a decision prior to that 35-day window.
Okay.
When is the? Do we know when the? And maybe we should have asked the applicant when the Hobson is when it's scheduled to be open. What's the? You want to approach the podium? We're allowed to do put your break. I just curious when it's going to schedule to be open.
I'm sorry. Can you?
You need to. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, when you comment again, you have to come back up. Thank you.
So our projected date is Memorial Day weekend, but of course, with everything in the world now, it's that's the push, and we feel pretty good about that. But if it's not, then it's within a couple weeks.
Okay.
I wish I had more definites.
All right.
I bet you do.
Yes.
Our next scheduled meeting would be June 7th, and that is exactly 34 days.
Okay. So we could push it off.
We could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that that's the most prudent move, but I'm just saying that that's an option.
Yeah. Al, you have any thoughts?
That would be mine. And the solicitor, you could then get with counsel as to what action they could take in that period of time.
Yeah, you can do that. You could just move to continue it tonight.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an option. We can have a motion for that if we want.
I move to continue the consideration of case 2203 till our next scheduled meeting in 34 days.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Okay. All right. Next, we have open forum, and we're going to use this open forum section for case 2204, which is a request for initiation of a special planning district for the Hunt and Whitaker, which is the commonly known as the Oak Street preliminary plan review application. We do not have a public hearing for this. What we're going to do in this new business is discuss whether we are going to have a motion to initiate a special planning district, and if we initiate that, there would be a public hearing for the next scheduled meeting. So that new business is not, we're not discussing, this is not a public hearing for that. So with that in mind, like I said, if anybody wants to speak, I've got a list of people here. I guess just show of hands, is there anyone here to speak? I can go through the names for Oak Street. Okay. Okay. Well, then, if you'd like to, please come up to the podium and then state your name, and I'll.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Fisher, and I live at 411 Oak Street. And I'm very nervous. So, as I mentioned, I wasn't planning to speak to that, and also that is a just over an acre piece of property where they're looking at putting multiple houses, and I just want to ask that we consider the size of the lots in those cases. So I haven't had a chance to read the information. I'm going to just read my statement because it speaks to this piece of land as well as the other piece of land. Okay. I've lived at 411 Oak Street since September of 2020. We chose this location because of the community, my long family history in the area, and mostly because of access to trees and natural spaces, including the Little Miami, a nationally recognized scenic and recreational river, and Grailville, a center of education, leadership, peace, and care of the earth. Our family can often be found outside, enjoying the mental and physical and spiritual health benefits that being in nature provides. During the past 2 years, activities in nature have proven to be more important than ever to many people I know. It is not lost on me that we are meeting during No Mow May and Mental Health Awareness Month to discuss how many more lawns filled with pesticides and herbicides should be allowed, invited, encouraged into our area. Because let's face it, the majority of lawns in newer subdivisions are being treated with chemicals regularly. Each of us, every person, is a steward for our community, which includes land, waterways, plants, animals, and humans. This responsibility is amplified for those with administrative roles such as yourselves, and is not limited simply to financial considerations. We all see our world and climate changing at a rapid pace. Many of us feel helpless to do anything about it. Most of us are so busy or overwhelmed we can't fathom getting involved. Thank you to everyone who shows up, even when it's hard or when you'd rather be somewhere else, particularly when you do it month after month after month. Today, I simply ask us to pause, lower our shoulders, unclench our jaws, and breathe, thanks to the trees. To radically listen, ask questions, consider possibilities, consider our life, consider our legacy. My heart is heavy at the thought of a bunch of houses at the end of my road and another large subdivision being built nearby, especially on land that has been lovingly tended, land so viscerally sacred, land that is certified organic, land that offers joy and solace to many of us, provides homes and food sources to a wide variety of plants, fungi, and animals. We humans are perfectly imperfect beings, and while I believe we are doing our very best every day, That often involves a lot of mistakes, regrets, and messes to clean up, big and small. Members of this community have and continue to work diligently to clean up land and water for us and for future generations. We can easily see that in the state and national certifications, in the grant recently obtained to remediate the Chestnut Street property, in the 3-gallon buckets of trash my partner collects regularly from the nearby streets. Change is inevitable. It is the only constant. In fact, we have all changed since I began speaking. The question is, what do you want that change to look and feel like? Personally, I want as many trees and as much natural green space as possible for all of us, for all the reasons.
Okay, now we're going to move into new business, case 2204, request for initiation of a special planning district. We hear from the, oh, I'm sorry.
Still in public forum.
Oh, we got closed. No, it's open forum. We don't have to close. Do we have to close open forum?
No, it's not a.
No, it's not a.
Okay, I'm sorry. Get my cases.
That's okay. That's okay. We got a lot going on. You do it. Even it's amazing when she transcribes all these things. You guys would just, it's unbelievable what she does for us. So very happy that we have her for the city. I could never do what she does. Trust me. So if we hear from the city on the background on this case.
Sure. Case 2204 is an application for preliminary review for the establishment of a special planning district. This application was filed by Hunt & Whitaker LLC. This is entitled the Oak Street Residential Development. They're requesting development of approximately 1.145 acres. They're proposing 6 single-family detached structure residential units on the subject property. They are requesting preliminary review for the ability to proceed with the establishment of a special planning district filed in accordance with Part 11, Title 3, Chapter 151, Section 15102A2 of the Planning and Zoning Code for the City of Loveland. Site plan materials and other information are attached to the staff memorandum. This project may seem familiar because the Planning and Zoning Commission has seen it a couple times in a couple different iterations. This project is the culmination of the applicants multiple times through the process and responding to concerns heard by the Commission and during other prior applications. Just by way of background, the property is subject to, it's split zoned. It's zoned residential medium density and H historic district. The development proposes minimum lot areas between 4,195 square feet to 6,316 square feet, which would result in a gross density of 5.21 units per acre and the preservation of a little bit over or just about half an acre of hillside area. The applicant states in their narrative that the special planning district the application narrative states that the designation is required to accommodate the proposed redevelopment of the site due to the steep topography situated on the portion of the site zoned H historic district. The land use configuration offered forth in this proposal, the applicant contends, is congruent with the special planning district standards defined in Chapter 1151 of the Zoning Code. The concept plan currently under consideration by the Commission differs, as I mentioned previously, from prior development proposals, at which time the applicant has significantly lowered the lot yield on the project site. The relevant text citation has been provided for the Planning and Zoning Commission's benefit, specifically the process to establish basically establish a special planning district. You have to, there's 3 ways to do it. Council can adopt a motion. The Planning Commission can adopt a motion following several steps, which is the process that they're proceeding under at this point. So this is the preliminary review phase. Looking at adopted planning documents, the Oak Street development does appear to be consistent again with the downtown strategic master plan because it supports moderate densities adjacent to the Eats Fence property, which was identified as a future mixed-use redevelopment opportunity in that plan. The development is also congruent with the recommendations of the existing comprehensive plan because it results in development that is similar to the unique village character of existing residential uses already located near downtown. And moving forward, the draft version of the 2022 comprehensive master plan indicates that this area of the city is designated to be part of the downtown residential neighborhoods area that states that development should complement the fabric of the existing community in terms of mass, scale, and height, and that steps should be taken to ensure that new development does not radically alter the character of the existing neighborhood. Key to that, and it's mentioned later in the report, that this property is located within the historic preservation district boundaries for the city. And so this property this is a very important designation that provides an additional level of review outside of the traditional SPD process that is designed to enhance the built environment and preserve the look and feel of the downtown district. There are additional regulations that apply to building colors, materials, building elevations, facades, and other design elements, which, if this proposal proceeds, is approved ultimately for development, there'll be an additional layer of review with the Historic Preservation and Planning Commission. So with that, I'll kind of jump around here. As I mentioned in my report, or memorandum, minimum lot areas for this project are 4,195 square feet. Minimum lot widths are 36 feet, and front setbacks are 25-foot minimum, with 3 to 5 foot minimum side yard setbacks and 20-foot minimum rear yard setbacks. Height requirements are 45 feet max, and the materials are brick and siding. Just of note, there is a reduced side yard setback on lot 1. This is appropriate for numerous reasons. Looking at this configuration results in an orderly planned appearance to the street. If that setback is greater, you end up with units that are skewed, and then it sort of leads to the last unit encroaching on the hillside a bit. So that small tweak there actually leads to a little bit better configuration when looking at it from a two-dimensional perspective. Looking at the purpose and scope of the special planning district regulations, the purpose is to regulate the development and use of the property in areas that contain sensitive or unique environmental, historic, architectural, or other features. Of note, as I indicated, you really have a split zone property here. The historic density allows the historic residential district allows greater densities. The medium density residential district allows less. What they're basically doing, for all practical intents and purposes, is shifting the density from the historic district to the flat part of the site, which is most suited for development at this time. The Planning Commission under Section 1150-102 would basically what you're doing here tonight is you're determining whether this meets one or more of the conditions required, and basically blessing this application to proceed forth in that process. So you can either find the project falls within the purpose and scope. You can, and then subsequently set a public hearing 45 days out of this meeting to garner public input, or you could find tonight that the application is not consistent with the special planning district regulations, purpose and scope, and deny this request to initiate the special planning district based on your preliminary review this evening. So looking at this and understanding the project history, the recommendation from staff would be that you approve this request to proceed and schedule the public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have somebody from you representing the applicant? Is that okay? Okay. We can't. Is the microphone on?
Did it work this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm representing the applicant.
Okay, can you please tell us your name and address then? And who you
Angelo Pusateri.
do you have any-
Address.
3246 Hardesty Avenue.
Thank you.
So do we have any questions for regarding this? No.
Do you have any?
I don't have any questions.
No.
I don't have any questions.
No.
No, I think it's been pretty well stated.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have if we go in the public hearing, you could come back, or if we vote to move it forward, obviously people can come back and comment on it. So, can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. No, if there's no questions, you can go ahead and sit down. We'll have discussions. So the question we have to answer is whether we want to move this to make sure I'm understanding, towards the public hearing, and if it meets the intent. Correct. We're not discussing the details at this time we can do that in the next go around. It's just the general concept. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Kressler,
Yeah, background is
lot of history.
2 years ago, this started off with an application for this parcel for 64 apartment units.
69.
69, about a third of which are hanging over the hillside. And they've been bought back here 5 times. We keep beating up on the developers. And the last time I think it was 9 or 10 units.
Yeah.
And we expressed, you're still a little heavy. I think this is interesting. I think it does meet requirements under sections. Hang on a sec. 1151.01 and 1151.03. Specifically, 1151.03 paragraphs B and C. It does meet those two requirements. So I think we should start the process on this go round and go from there. Have the public hearing. Then we will make a recommendation. Then it will go to council, and they will have a public hearing. And then it will go to the historic district for the final look and feel type things. So there's going to be 3 reviews of this thing if we start tonight. So that's just my feel. Based on where we were and where it is now, it's a great improvement to what was originally planned, and is more in keeping with the way the downtown is going to develop over time.
I agree with Al. I'd like to thank the applicant for taking comments into consideration. I mean, this is a much different proposal, scaled way back from where it started. He could build whatever he wants to on that historic side. The 69 apartments, if he could have found a way to make it work and he could afford to build on that hillside, he could have done it. So I think this is fitting with some of the other newer homes in the neighborhood, and I certainly think it gets another shot at a public hearing.
Any thoughts or not?
I agree as well. I think that the application itself is in a better state than it was February 1st, and at that point we had voted to move it forward to a public hearing during that meeting. So I think Mr. Wright articulated well particularly the split zoning issue, and in the application you could see some of the considerations for what the different zoning configurations could have looked like versus what they're proposing with this SPD. So I am in agreement with Mr. Kressler, Mr. O'Neill, in terms of moving this forward to a public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I would concur with everybody's comments up here. I think there's a few minor tweaks we can make, but for the most part, we've gotten a lot further along than we were a couple of years ago in terms of the right direction, and I think it deserves a public hearing on the matter to get people's comments on what their thoughts are on this option. So, do we have any motions we want to put on the table?
I move we hold a public hearing on application 22-04 for preliminary hearing on establishment special planning zoning district on Oak Street on the date
June 7th.
June 7th.
Around
at or around 7 p.m.
Second.
Mr. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Pressler,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Okay. All right. The next order of business, we're going to hold open forum for basically for additional comments on the Dries Special Planning District case 22-02. So I've got a list of names. I'm going to read them off, and we'll go in the order that you guys have signed up here. Again, I know there's some names that you talked to us and addressed us back at the when we had the public hearing in St. Patrick's Day. So if you're welcome to come back up. Just please, any additional or new information or new comments you'd like to make, we'd like to keep that so we can keep it concise and get the right, everybody's input and new information or new comments. So,
and those of you that spoke before, we took notes and I reviewed them before. So we're familiar with those that have spoken before and what their opinions are.
Yeah.
So if you do want to speak again and add to that, that's fine. But if it's going to be a repeat of what you already said, let somebody else have a chance. Because last time we had over 22 speakers.
And they're in the meeting minutes. We have, all the different comments in the meeting minutes. So we've got a record of all that, just so everybody realizes that. So first, go ahead. Yes.
For those that may be new, could you explain to them the timer?
Oh, yes. Again.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's a timer. If everybody can see it, it's a green, yellow, and red lights on the box. It basically a 5-minute timer. The green light is the beginning, and then there's I don't know, is it 30 seconds? The yellow light comes on about 30 seconds left, and then the red light comes on, and we have to cut it off at that. And I don't want to be rude and appear mean or anything, but we have to keep it going. If we let one person go over 5 or a couple minutes, then we'll do it for everybody. So again, just to keep it in orderly, we request when it goes off, we'll let you finish. We're not going to shut it off, but just finish your sentence and then sit down. We'll call the next person. So, and all right, everybody good? Ready? All right. Elizabeth Robinson.
Good evening, everyone. I live at 531 East Loveland, and my name is Elizabeth Robinson. I'm a lifelong Loveland resident and a Grail member. I want to start us off with a prayer. God of creation, we ask for your blessing this evening. You have taught us that all of creation is your handiwork. Grant each of us, as citizens and servants of our town, your spirit of love, wisdom, and grace to exercise enlightened stewardship of your gifts of abundant natural beauty. Plant in our hearts a seed of visionary courage towards a bountiful future for all. We pray this evening for our children who bear the future and are the hope of the future. May our example of wise and visionary servant leadership teach them and allow for all a joyful and expansive inheritance of the richness and beauty of your creation. We pray that right here in our community of Loveland, one generation to another, and another, and down through the ages, will proclaim the wonder of your works. May you be glorified through all that you have made. Amen. And in closing, Dries is a big and successful company that builds subdivisions in many parts of the country. If Grailville land is not turned into a subdivision, Dries can and will take its plan and build something similar in another place. The citizens of Loveland, however, will lose forever something precious and beyond price, expansive green space that can never be gained back. Loveland citizens will be thankful years from now if we preserve this lovely natural place for the good of all, as did those bike trail visionaries many years ago. I asked the Loveland Planning and Zoning Commission and Loveland City Council to listen to their hearts and reject this proposed zoning change. Reject it not only on very real practical matters, but a greater vision of the intrinsic beauty and value of green space for Lovelanders into the future. Thank you.
I apologize in advance for not pronouncing people's names correctly. Janice Alvarado?
It's Janice Alvarado.
80%.
Try.
80% right.
Yes, yes. And I live at 3052 Springer Avenue. I'm going to be very brief. Those who have gone before me have spoken so eloquently. But I'm just going to be brief and to the point. I do not have a history with Grailville. And I understand there are many, many here who are going to talk about their memories and what Grailville has meant to them and their families and their friends. I'm just a concerned citizen that wants very much to preserve our green space. And I want to protect the homes of the animals that live there. Loveland, I just read recently that Loveland is #1 neighborhood in the Cincinnati area, and I'm betting that Grailville has something to do with that. And sorry, I have to rely on my notes. And I understand. I understand money and how attractive that must be, but I really think we need to take a stand to do what's right. I hope that we can make a decision that will preserve what we already have and not destroy it for posterity. It may be a difficult situation to do, but I think it's the right thing to do, and maybe one that will keep Loveland #1 neighborhood in the area. Thank you.
Next we have Kent Orso.
Hello and good evening. I'm Kent Orso and I live at 100 Silas Lane. I'm on the White Pillars HOA board. I'm coming tonight with some of the concerns of our residents that live in White Pillars. We realize that White Pillars received a special exception in 2006, but Loveland was a very different place back then than it is today. Our concern is obviously the traffic. We see a number of vehicles today on Route 48, otherwise known as Oakland Road. Our other concern is with a lack of a sewer impact study. We realize that per the last meeting, the sewer line has to be connected with the one up on 48 because Clermont County stated the one on O'Banionville Road is too small. We just want to understand if that's something that Loveland taxpayers will have to pay to fix after the subdivision has been completed and an impact study wasn't done. We're also concerned about the newest traffic study. We realize that you contracted with the firm that Dries used to do the prior study in 2021, and we realize it's not done yet, but we'd like to understand that we believe that there should be at least 2 turn lanes to get in and out of this subdivision because that entrance will be directly across from White Pillars. The other thing is Loveland's a historical place, and we realize that we're just trying to maintain the look and feel of Loveland. And that's just, we have 135 townhomes in our subdivision and 74 single family homes. And as you guys stated in your last minutes, there were 10 children in the townhomes that contributed to the Loveland School District. The bulk of the children that are in school district are in the 74 single family homes. I implore you to look at the number of homes that Dries wants to put on those 111 acres and realize that there will be another impact to the school district. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Lori Kiley.
I'm Lori Kiley. I live at 1221 Retswood Drive. I wrote a letter so that I could have the courage to state it up here. As I sit to put my feelings about the development of the Grailville property into writing, Joni Mitchell's lyrics are stuck in my head. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. While I am a tree hugger in my soul, I'm also realistic that as humankind continues to evolve, nature will always be at risk. We must be diligent to make personal choices and choices as a community that result in the greatest legacy for those who come after us. We cannot be short-sighted. That being said, my biggest concern here today is actually about accountability. Loveland's residents elect our council to have privileged access to information on our behalf. We expect that they are making decisions holistically and with the future in mind well beyond their tenure. As accountable council members, we implore you to please not make easy compromises today that will lead to deeper issues for our community tomorrow. The full impact of every rezoning decision, every parking garage, every field that is eliminated must be considered. In our personal lives, it is irresponsible to spend beyond our means or to act now and think later. Likewise, it would be irresponsible for our council to make decisions that put Loveland's future at risk. The Grail is entitled to sell the property they cannot afford to hold. And Dries is entitled to request an exception to maximize their profits and create a space that benefits 209 new households. Loveland Council, however, is not obligated to create new laws to make it happen. I want to go back to my previous point, encouraging holistic decision-making. Here is a summary of interrelated concerns from my point of view. The Dries proposal outlines lot dimensions that equate to 0.16 acres that are 70% covered by house, at worst, and 0.27 acre lots that are 60% covered by house, at best. In contrast, Loveland's current zoning stipulates 1 acre per lot for new development. If Dries accepts current zoning, it's a done deal. It's within our regulations. The traffic studies, limited as they were, confirmed that this development would increase traffic through downtown by over 2,000 daily trips. Loveland residents know that the true impact of congestion is felt most at peak times like school commute and rush hour and all weekend long, when good weather brings visitors into our bike trail for hours of entertainment outside our borders. Council should avoid decisions that worsen our traffic problems before a viable solution has been identified. Tearing up Loveland Avenue to install bigger sewage pipes would be necessary, and the treatment plant may or may not already be maxed out. Loveland's taxpayers require clarity and full disclosure about who would absorb the cost to resolve these concerns before any new SPD zoning exceptions are approved. More houses would result in tax income, and the majority would go to our schools, but it would also add more kids and related expenses. This will overburden our situation. If the reputation of our schools degrade, then everything else in the ecosystem will start failing also. If council is contractually obligated to respond to this SPD, then the answer must be no, until we can thoughtfully consider the big picture. Yes, something will be built there. Let's build something that benefits the entire community. Let's build something that will make Loveland even more cherished by its citizens and inspire hope for the future. Please don't cite failed levies of the past. There's no reason to blame in any direction. Those levies only indicate the expectations of the planners and voters were not in line. Loveland needs to stand up for itself. We need to be bold and brave and involved in order to maintain our character and identity as a community. By not approving this SPD, our elected council would give Loveland a huge opportunity to help the Grail and Loveland find an optimal solution to the benefit of all. Thank you.
Next, we have Jamie Smith.
Hello, my name's Jamie Smith. I live at 307 Cedar Drive in Loveland. I've lived in Loveland my entire life. I've raised 5 sons in an old house on Cedar Drive. I have a very deep connection to this place, and my family's favorite place in Loveland is Grailville. I have a very stressful lifestyle. I've raised 5 sons a great majority of the time as a single mother. Their father has struggled with opioid addiction his entire adult life. He's been clean for 10 years now, but the experience of addiction within a family is traumatizing. One of the most direct effects of drug addiction is the financial havoc that it wreaks on a family. I've had to maintain a full-time and at least 2 or 3 additional part-time jobs for my sons' entire lives. I've obtained work in fields where I could spend my days and summers with my children to alleviate the need for child care and to be a good mother and a contributing member of society. I designed my life around spending time in nature with my kids, not only because it was all that we could afford, but because it was healthy and fulfilling, and it brought joy to a mentally and emotionally exhausted family. We could not afford memberships at Normandy Swim Club or Miami Hills Pool. We took our feet and we walked out of a house with a broken AC unit across the street and onto the trails that led to Grailville. We entered the cool woods and trekked down Grailville's paths, across the meadows, past the farmland, back into the forest, and down to the respite of the cool waters of the O'Banion Creek. We floated our stress away in the creek and then whistled our worries away on the way home, just in time to let our tired dogs collapse and allow myself to get to work on time. The relationship that we developed with this land as a family has been spiritual and therapeutic. Grailville has provided my children a higher quality of life than was otherwise available to them. I am forever grateful that a private landowning organization was happy to share its blessings. Those blessings were able to be imbued into the community as the fruit of the work and the purpose of the founders of Grailville. I work at Mason City Schools with behavioral needs students. I see the results of holistic approaches to mental wellness in my daily work. Nature heals. The benefits to humanity from exposure to natural areas are diverse. They include health benefits such as optimum nervous system functioning, well-balanced heart conditions, better vision, lower BMI, less fatigue, and obesity-related issues. But the wellness benefits spill over into mental health wellness, and that directly affects our communities, making them a better place to live with less crime and greater levels of cooperation. Exposure to nature lends human beings better emotional regulation and even improved cognitive performance. Time in nature helps improve suffering from depression and reduces stress levels. It increases problem-solving skills and creativity. But beyond the blessings that this precious green space has gifted my family and can offer to others, there's an even greater good that this space can do in helping to heal our planet. Grailville is the last of the Mohicans of the green space in Loveland. It is the last expansive bit of farmland left that has not been developed. And now, with the annexation, Loveland citizens have the rare opportunity to ask of our leaders to do something visionary and brilliant that will be lasting for the people who inhabit this place. The size of Grailville is imperative to the issue of area sensitivity. Area sensitivity is a scientific term related to the notion that a variety of wildlife requires a certain amount of area to thrive. If the landmass on the south side of Grailville is saved from development, it is substantial enough in connection to the north side to create a significant impact on wildlife, especially grassland bird species. In addition to the ecological benefits related to biodiversity, a natural area's viewshed has its own intrinsic value. Compromising the natural pastoral viewshed of Grailville would have an irreversible effect. The losses of eradicating this gem of a natural area are too many to count, and they would be permanent losses. Your committee and the elected officials in Loveland have an opportunity tonight and in the coming months to do something visionary, to become part of a road that paved a way to ensuring the value of the place we have here for generations to come. The value of the Grailville land to humanity and wildlife is immeasurable. Loveland has the chance to establish a precedent for other municipalities where we made a bright decision in choosing long-term value over short-sighted gain. Places such as Indian Hill have ensured the long-term value of property in their region by setting aside green spaces of up to 2,500 acres in permanent trusts. When Indian Hill City Council first made the decision to purchase this large tract of land and place 25% of their land mass aside in a preserved trust, they were heavily criticized. But their plan was brilliant and has paid off for that community tenfold. Those council members are now regaled as heroes. Green space is a solid financial investment. This is the City of Loveland's last chance to save our hometown from becoming a future place with no value from green space. I implore you to vote no tonight. Grailville is a sacred place with countless attributes and possibilities. Thank you.
I'm assuming you're Joy.
I
Correct.
am.
Okay.
We were not permitted permission to use the AV equipment tonight.
Please start with
Sorry.
the full name and address, please. Thank
Joy
you.
Needing Rucker, 1222 Retswood Drive. We were not granted permission to use the AV equipment tonight, so I printed off some pictures so that everyone can see the beauty of Grailville and the joy it provides. When I started researching the history of this land, its use, and what flora and fauna call home to this priceless property, I wasn't sure where to start. I don't know how to put into words its multi-layered worth, both literally and to many of us in the room tonight. At a loss for words, I was struck by the definition of loss. Loss is defined as destruction, ruin. Alternatively, a failure to gain, win, obtain, or utilize. Voting yes on the proposed SPD is a loss of green space, habitat, flora, and fauna. A yes to the SPD is a failure to utilize precious green space for the greater good. A yes vote to the SPD is not for the citizens of Loveland. As many Lovelanders who frequent this land can tell you, there's a diverse ecosystem thriving here. Milkweed, bees, hawks, deer, fox, the list goes on. According to Section 1151.05, Required Development Guidelines for an SPD, Section H, states that the proposed development have environmental and natural resource protection. DREES stated in their application, quote, "A few streams and wetlands have been identified throughout the site by the environmental consultant, Ramble and America's Engineering Solutions Incorporated, and they will be protected throughout the development and maintained as HOA open space. In addition, there are 2 existing ponds on the property," end quote. Did they only look at the lay of the land? I have requested the environmental consultant report from DREES and I'm still awaiting a response. Those of us who love this land can tell you that there is more than streams, wetlands, and ponds that need protection. How are the flora, fauna, and organic farmland going to be protected in the DREES plan? As long as there is a plan to build, there is no protection. I have spoken about the loss of this land, but what will Loveland gain if this land is built upon? We will gain traffic and overcrowded streets. We will gain voters that aren't going to vote favorably for future levies, as they will already be paying taxes for Miami Township and for Loveland. Does the City of Loveland only see an increased tax base? What could we gain if the SPD and future developments are halted? We could gain a beautiful space where the citizens of Loveland could reap the benefits of green space while experiencing a connection to the earth and community. The DREES development presents no gains for the greater good of the City of Loveland. These homes are not being built for Loveland residents. The average Loveland resident cannot afford these homes. The Loveland average median income is approximately $70,000. The starting price of these homes is expected to be $450,000. 72 of the proposed homes are patio homes, presumably geared towards the 16% of Loveland residents who are over the age of 65, who are likely on a fixed income. How can the average Loveland family afford these homes? Let's look for a plan that benefits all of Loveland. We understand the Grail wants to liquidate the property. The property can be liquidated. But let's not destroy the opportunity for our future generations to utilize this green space in a sustainable manner. Vote no on the SPD.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Hill.
I'd like to, Patrick Hill, my residence is 974 Abandonville Road. My son is a resident at 537 East Loveland Avenue. I spoke at the St. Patrick's Day hearing and on the topic of sewers. And since that time, I wanted to respond to Mr. Main's response to my concerns that night. And that he talked about the idea of pumping sewage to white pillars. Article 5, Section 501 of Metropolitan Sewer District specifications states that approval of wastewater lift stations will be limited to providing service only to those areas where a gravity sewer system is not feasible. I have here a topographical map that shows the feasibility of gravity drainage for that sewer system. That entire property can be served by gravity, not necessitating a sewage lift station. In my business experience, as my relationship with the County Highway Department and the Township Road Department grew over the years, I was often taken by the engineers and the township to private properties that had been first adversely affected by the stormwater discharge of subdivisions, and asked if I could take my equipment onto private property and try to remedy some of the stormwater issues that these discharge points had created, and that public equipment is not permitted to go onto private property and resolve those kind of issues. And as such, I witnessed discharge points of stormwater that created considerable damage to private property. Although the development had fulfilled the specifications and design criteria, the downstream property owners, in some cases, and not usually they were. In some cases, they've been devastating, and I'd be happy to show anybody a few properties around the Claremont County area affected such. As such, I would encourage property owners that are downstream of this property to register with the Planning and Zoning Department before the development begins, so as to hold whoever the developer eventually is responsible after the development has occurred. That is your legal right if you register your property prior to the development. We just handed out a cup of coffee. Respectfully, Mr. Maines, I made a public documents request to Metropolitan Sewer District when I understood that Dries had, in fact, made application for availability of sewers after our March 17th meeting. You see on the first line there, it says Metropolitan Sewer District response. Mr. Maines, your sewer availability request for the property referenced above has been processed. And at this time, existing capacity issues prohibit the additional flows proposed by this project. Basically, without belaboring the rest of the letter, the Metropolitan Sewer District engineers have determined that the sewer pipes through downtown Loveland are undersized for the amount of flow that this project would create and need to be increased. At this point, I'll say this. In my career, I worked on 6 properties on East Loveland Avenue, and the difficulty in working with MSD in Loveland is that the fire in Loveland in 74 destroyed all the sewer records. And MSD has very poor sewer records of the city because of that, unless they've put cameras in the pipes and reestablished what is out there. MSD doesn't know. But in this letter, there's requiring that the sewer main from Carl Brown Way to 5th Street be replaced. And we stop and think about the concept of a sewer project running alongside the high pressure gas main that runs through downtown Loveland, under the railroad tracks, under the bike trail, and through town. I highly recommend that the Planning and Zoning Committee not recommend this development proceed at this time until this is clear. Thank you.
We have Courtney Hauk. Courtney.
I probably don't need that, but my name's Courtney Hauk, and I live at 497 North 2nd Street. Great crowd tonight. I'm glad to see there's so many people interested in this project. I don't want to go over much of what we've already know because we have several other group members who have actual facts. I want instead to address something that has been ignored in all this. That's the Grayville house itself and some of the accessory buildings, 4 total. The house was called House of Joy. There's also the Oratory, the Tidings, and Hodi. Okay. I'll take your word for it. The focal point of Grayville is the main house. Without the house, Grayville is only a fading memory and a huge loss to the history of Loveland. Grayville was bought by the Grail in 1944, and the house was already there. The house is probably circa 1900. Some of the outbuildings are older. The Grail Group was a huge draw and asset to Loveland, attracting people from all over the world. If you're interested, you can go to Loveland, Ohio, Grayville on your computer. There's wonderful articles and photos and all sorts of stuff on the history and the layout of Grayville. Dree's company wants to tear down all the buildings and erase a large section of Loveland history. Regardless of what happens to the property, this house needs to be saved. If you look at the house and buildings, you might think of the restoration would be impossible. For Dries, it is because they don't have the experienced craftsmen to do the work. I'm not just talking with no backup of facts. I spent 27 years running construction restoration crews for my family 100-year-old company. We did mostly fire repairs, tornadoes, negligent restorations, including a few historic museums. I live in a restored Loveland home for the last 30 years, not far from Grayville. The Grayville house would definitely be eligible for National Historic designation when completed. How much would the restoration cost? Depending on some variables, about $350,000 plus the land. 2 acres should be used to go under the property. The sale price or value when completed would be about $900,000 to $1 million, depending on the build-outs. The outbuildings would be additional cost if those were to be restored also. I'm against the Dries development. Let's save the House of Joy. It's a historic piece of Loveland. Thank you.
Bill, and I apologize, Kalen.
Hello, Bill Cahalan. I live at 601 Enright Avenue in Cincinnati. So I'm not a Loveland resident, unlike I think everyone else who spoke before me, but I've had about a almost 50 years relationship with Grayville. Came out in the 70s to a weekend workshop on cooperatives. I led a weekend workshop, a retreat really, in 83, again in the early 90s, 2 other retreats on reconnecting with the natural world. I'm a clinical psychologist, environmental activist, organic gardener. And I love the land, especially. Grailville may be gone or vastly diminished now as an institution, but the land is there. And others have already spoken pretty eloquently about its benefits for everybody. To double the number of homes, more than double, that Dries would build, wouldn't just double the traffic, the children in schools, the sewage released, and so forth, some of the things already mentioned. But while the visible acreage of 100 acres, more or less, would remain, the ecological footprint, or ghost acreage, as some have called it, would be vastly increased. In other words, the land required to sequester the CO2 released from just those homes functioning, heating the homes and so forth, the land required to supply the food, on and on. We all contribute to ghost acreage of lands, the diminishment of land, the health of lands that we can't see, that are at a great distance. So one of the signs I saw up front, I think someone still has it here, quotes Henry David Thoreau. Well, it says, "What is the use of a house if you haven't got a tolerable planet to put it on?" And the health of the planet, whether here or elsewhere, affects all of us. And so I'm very much against the approval of doubling the number of homes that Dries is allowed to build. Thank you.
Next, we have Dave Stanton.
Dave Stanton, 208 Century Hill Drive, Loveland, Ohio. Let's take a moment to understand the decisions made by this commission and that have both short-term and long-term impacts on the Loveland community, both positive and negative. What may look good on a zoning map for rezoning and what a developer is wanting to develop may not always be in the best interest of the city of Loveland and the city homeowners and taxpayers. This commission needs to have a full understanding of the impacts on our existing infrastructure, impacts on the traffic, impacts on the biggest investment people make in Loveland with their homes, and the impacts on the city's finances before any SPD rezoning request can have a decision be made. What you have in front of you is a financial analysis report focused on the impact of adding an additional 209 homes, both in property tax and income tax. The information in the report is comprised from public data and supporting documentation from the city. As you can see from the property and income tax summary, the City of Loveland's annual property tax income for the 209 homes would be $255,660. The additional cost to the City of Loveland to fully support the Dries development with police, fire, EMS, roads, and maintenance would be $294,099. This creates a deficit in spending of negative $38,440 annually against the property tax revenue income. The property tax analysis supported detail is included in the financial report. The City of Loveland's annual income tax revenue for the 209 homes would be $105,300, based on 135 homes with a median income of $150,000. 74 patio homes would be retirees who pay no income tax. As confirmed with Mark Medler, Director of Finance, only 52% of working Loveland residents pay Loveland income tax. The 2022 City of Loveland budget is $7,965,755. The 2021 City Loveland population is 13,485, which equates to $590.71 per resident in budget expenditures. In using conservative numbers in the increase to the City of Loveland population based on the Dries development would be 620.5 additional residents. With this 4.6% increase in the population to a total of 14,106 residents at $590.71 per resident would increase the city's annual expense budget to $8,332,292. The increase in the city's budget of $366,537 to cover the new residents in comparing the city's income tax from the Dries development of $105,300. This creates a deficit in expense spending of negative $261,237. The income tax analysis supported detail is included in the financial report. This financial analysis doesn't include additional expenses that I would hope if this SPD was be considered to move forward, that Dries would have to pay for. Regarding Dries would need to pay for improvements to O'Banion Road to handle the additional traffic and pay for the half mile of MSD sewer upgrade on O'Banion Road through downtown Loveland. As MSD has no capital funds to pay for this sewer upgrade, and Dries has stated in their April 22nd letter to the City of Loveland regarding infrastructure, their responsibilities would be on Dries to make the necessary improvements. The city should bear no cost for the MSD sewer upgrade and road improvements to O'Banion Road, and not even consider doing assessments against properties being built on if this SPD is approved, because it takes 20 years. That's a no-interest loan you're giving to the developer. We're not in the no-interest loan business as city taxpayers. As you can see from the financial analysis showing the negative impact to the City of Loveland's expenses with regards to property and income tax revenue, this is not a good investment for the taxpayers of Loveland and reflects deficit spending. Going back to my opening statement, understand the decisions made by this commission have both short-term and long-term impacts on the Loveland community. A decision that was made by this commission on the rezoning to multifamily from medium residential for Blossom Hill has had a direct negative impact on Century Hill homes. Your decisions have made some of the Century Hill homes unsellable based on your rezoning recommendations, with multifamily structures being built right next to Century Hill. So again, think about your decisions being made and the full understanding of the impact of the city and the people of Loveland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Colleen Furay.
Hello. Close. Fury.
Fury.
I'm Colleen Witchker Fury. I'm at 112 Bears Creek Court, Loveland, Ohio. I've been here before. My concern is as a parent of kids in our Loveland schools. You know, we're using every possible space in our schools. Our buildings are at capacity. As a public school, we accept all kids. When our local private schools are full, which many of them are, the kids come to us. We are making do with what we have, but making do is not what we want for our kids. This year, our transportation is stressed too. We are down with staffing, combining routes, and adding extra long trips. At this time, they're considering next year shifting the start and the end times because of our busing. We all know Loveland City Schools is going through strategic planning. This is where we are right now. Now is not the time to add more homes, more families, and more kids. Even 90 homes would put immense stress on our buildings, our teachers, and our bus drivers. I urge you to vote no to this recommendation.
Next, we have Paul Rumpke.
Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Rumpke. I live at 147 Bears Creek Court. There's been a lot of great facts tonight. A lot of people have done a lot of great homework. The way I look at it, it's just a pretty simple vote for you guys. It's you represent the people of Loveland, their best interests, what they want, and I don't really know anybody who's for this besides Dries, which they have every right to do because that's what they do. They make money and they build houses. But I would venture to say 90% of Loveland doesn't want this. So I know there's no formal vote. There's nothing else, but you can look at the people in this room and see they feel pretty passionate about it. And I'd venture to say, there's probably 20% who could care less, but, most of them, if you explain the situation, wouldn't want these additional houses and additional traffic coming through downtown. It wouldn't make anybody's life any easier for the people who live in this community. So I know there's no formal, but I would like to see a show of hands if anybody here is actually for this proposal. One. You have one. Who is not in favor of this proposal? It's pretty easy. That's your decision right there, I think. Thanks.
Next, we have Robert Boyle.
Hi, I was here. My name is Robert Boyle. I live at 269 Glen Lake Road. I was here before and addressed you regarding Drees's presentation. Let me bring this up a moment. On April 22nd, Drees, it's never working right when you really need it. Drees made a presentation, and I had some concerns about it. Drees wrote a letter back on April 22nd to address some of those concerns. One of them had to do with the infrastructure. And we've already had two people here tonight point out that this is not a win for Loveland, that too much of this would depend upon Drees actually taking care of a water sewer line that needs to be improved and things like the roads. And Drees's response to this concern was to say final design for these systems will not occur until after the zoning process has concluded. The key is that the reviewing agencies will not allow the existing infrastructure to be overburdened, and if needed, the responsibility is on Drees. Drees is saying this about themselves, is on Drees to make the necessary improvements should they want to proceed with the project. Am I being too cynical when I have questions about whether the reviewing process is always carried out properly? And do I have any concerns about whether Drees will actually make the improvements that are necessary without telling us in advance what they are? I know this is facetious, but if you believe that you can trust Drees to do everything that they say, I got a bridge in Brooklyn, could I interest you in it? In addition, the traffic study, I believe, aren't we having this meeting here tonight because a new traffic study was commissioned to be completed so that we continued this meeting? Well, that tells you something right there, that the first traffic study wasn't really adequate to start with. And then finally, the other issue that I addressed when I first stood here on April 17th was the school system. In Drees's letter, which I think all of you have copies of from April 22nd, where they address these concerns, they compare the Harvest project, that is what they're calling the Grailville project, with the Elliott Farm community. And they point out that the patio homes in the Elliott Farm community actually add very few students to the school system, because, as they point out and other people have said here, these are basically for retirees, for empty nesters. What they don't point out is that there are 135 other traditional homes that are going to be put into this development, and it's kind of disingenuous, but not once anywhere in their addressing of this current concern do they compare the traditional homes that are in the Elliott Farm development or give any estimate of how many children would be added to our school system. And as the woman who mentioned this before me, we're at capacity right now. So either we reduce the quality of education for the students we currently have, or we have a levy in the future because we will need more facilities. I personally don't think that the traditional Grailville is ever coming back. And the Grail has every right to sell the property, although we have no obligation to make them whole on this issue. And It's my opinion, it's currently zoned at RLD. We have an asset that's very valuable to other people. Don't let it burn a hole in your pocket and make you feel like you've got to move on this right away. Take your time. You can probably get a better offer. RLD would not be as detrimental to our community as this SPD would be. And I would suggest that, and here's the other thing, if you're our representatives, if you really had the courage, you would take a referendum of the community and you'd find out that that people in Loveland probably don't want this. When we stand outside and we wave our signs, we get a lot of thumbs up and a lot of horn honking in our favor. Be our representatives, please.
Next, we have Nick Farr.
My name is Nick Farr. I live at 443 Walker Street in Loveland. I've lived there since '95, but actually for 30 years I lived at Farr Lane. I grew up right next to Grellville. And I've, over the years, have been familiar with all the Grail ladies and members, and all the founders. And actually we had our first nationally televised Catholic Mass in English at the Oratory, televised like 1965. That was national broadcast. Anyway, what I have is memories. I don't have data. I don't have numbers for why Greville shouldn't be developed, etc. But one of my favorite sayings is from Thoreau. He said back in 1845 that wilderness is the preservation of the world. Now, he was living in a time when there was a lot of wilderness left. So we're living in a time there's not much wilderness left, and in Loveland there's not any place like Grellville. It has just wonderful land. It's got all the environmental requirements of a new age place that somebody could develop and have really a wonderful thing going there. I even had a thought like, what if a place like, or an organization like Arbor Day created a satellite farm there? I mean, that's fantasy. But there's other ideas. There's other ways to look at things besides putting another development in on a spot of land and just totally ruining what was there. Thank you.
Becky Hill.
Huh?
Hello, my name's Becky Hill. I live at 974 O'Bannonville Road, Loveland, across the street from Grellville. It is a sacred place. It is a natural place. It is a resource for all of us. When I look at the Dries plan, there's almost no green space left in it. I'm for green space, and I think it's really an important thing for all of us. I think the thing that I need to say to you all is that I think we should say no to the plan. But at the very least thing that you can do is to say no to the double density. It takes most of the green space away. If you even had half the number of homes there, you would have double the green space and double the negative impact on the entire community. So at the very least, I would urge you to not go with this double density business. The original annexation zoning density is plenty enough. Thank you.
Next we have Tim Farr. Tim says Tim L. Farr. No. Okay. Comes back, we'll get him back on. Then Lauren Endai or
Sorry, my handwriting's crap.
Endo.
Enda.
Enda.
That's an A.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Lauren Enda, as we all know now, 5073 Bristol Court. I want to first say thank you to everybody, up to 50 people who attended the rally this evening. We met at 6 o'clock. Everybody carried signs, discussed future plans, and visited with neighbors. It was a lovely time, but with a very, very serious purpose. Your commitment to preserving the jewel that is the Grill property is touching and absolutely necessary. So thank you again. We have heard from many concerned, thoughtful residents tonight on the proposed development at Grailville. If development goes ahead, there would be overcrowding in schools, traffic backups for years, and deficits in Loveland's financial forecasts, among other issues. These concerns are immediate, they're local, and they're personal. But there are also broader issues of concern that are long-ranging, global, and collective. The one thing that underpins and at the same time supersedes all of these issues is the health and viability of our planet. Our world, including Loveland, has been making the kinds of decisions for centuries that we are contemplating tonight. Do we value profit above all else, even to the detriment of our own living natural world? Our decision, your decision, is next in a long line of previous decisions that have left society with biodiversity loss, destruction of habitat, unpredictable and devastating weather patterns, widespread erosion, and dangerous levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We are all at a crossroads. We can choose differently. We can choose differently now because we understand what causes these dangers. Destroying watersheds, clear-cutting trees, laying concrete, increasing our carbon footprint. Large housing developments, like what we're contemplating here, cause all of these dangers and many more. From the first moment the first shovel goes into the ground, we will all suffer, not just now, but for generations. Because we are not fighting this fight for the sake of the bees or the flowers, or the caterpillars, or the trees, or the streams. We are fighting for our children and their children. They are counting on us to maintain, if not improve, the health of the world. Choose a better path going forward. Make a different decision for them so they can feel secure in their future. At some point, they might just ask you, what did you do once you knew? And you don't need to know the Latin names for trees or how carbon offsets work or how they calculate the amount of greenhouse gases to do the right thing. All you need to ask is, will my decision help or hurt our children's future? If we protect these 100 acres outside of Loveland, will it reverse the global effects of previous bad decisions? No. But it will protect and enhance our world here in Loveland. And our fight here to protect undisturbed natural habitat mirrors other work being done elsewhere to protect additional habitat. Every acre of natural space that we protect increases the chance that our children will inherit a healthy planet. Our children need these 100 acres to remain inviolate. Henry David Thoreau's quote from over 150 years ago rings very true today more than ever. What is the use of a house if you haven't got a tolerable planet to put it on? Thank you.
Next we have Tom Lake.
Good evening. My name is Tom Lake. I live at 1212 Retswood Drive. I'm here to just speak about some personal experiences with some of the construction that has taken place across the road from our street on 48, off of 48. I've lived on Retswood since 1997. So we've been there then for, pushing 25 years, and I've had a chance to see how things have changed. It was cornfields and cattle grazing on either sides of the road. Through my property runs a creek that empties into a pond that was once part of a farm pond for watering the cattle. And I've taken a lot of pride in that pond, and I've done a lot of work with the pond. I've done a lot of work in the creek that feeds the pond. The creek is being fed from this areas to the south of us and along the roadway of 48. Since I've been there, there's been a lot of construction from Oakland to Paxton, over in White Pillars and up in other subdivisions. And what I've seen, and this is my observations, is that I've seen a vast increase in flooding under heavy rainstorms on my property. That is to say, the creek overflows, and it's a torrent rushing into the pond, and then the pond discharges onto my neighbor's property, and it drops down and it erodes, and it's eating away trees. And all of this is coming from the increased development across the road. Similar effects are going to be occurring with the increased development in Grailville downstream. And I'm speaking not of sewage now, I'm talking about surface water runoff. What I've seen as a result of all this building construction on my side, or on the south of 48 side, is increase in algae. It gets thick, gets really thick. And no matter what you do, we put in pump aeration to get oxygen. We put in, you hate to use chemicals to kill it, but it gets thick if you don't stay on it. And that is coming from the increased phosphorus that's being dumped on lawns all around. And all the lawns in Grailville, they will be getting increased phosphorus load. I also see extreme erosion going on in our creek beds as a result of the runoff from these properties. And once again, the runoff from Grailville properties is going to cause a lot of erosion that no one really takes responsibility for. I see an increase in sedimentation, silt, sand that's pouring from this creek into my pond, filling up, creating new lands where the geese come down now and land in the middle of the pond. I call it Goose Island now. So I try to keep the silt load down as best I can, but it's all been occurring in the last 6-7 years. Not the earlier 25 years ago. It was not like that. So I also see garbage coming in, not sewage garbage, but trash garbage, pop bottles, beer bottles, McDonald's cartons coming from roadway and from houses possibly across the street, and they float down the creek. Then they end up in my pond. And I see the same thing is going to be happening to the people on the East Loveland side due to all this development. A lot of people just don't take the responsibility for that. So I'm using this as anecdotal evidence of what you can certainly expect in the kinds of complaints you are going to be getting as this Grailville project potentially launches without any of this being considered in advance and paid for in advance. Thank you.
We have Sharon Scovanner and Tom Scovanner. Do you want to? Are you guys? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Scovanner at 155 Overlook Drive. Dries is requesting a zoning change from the current zoning of residential low density to special planning district. For many reasons, this request must be denied. Pertaining to density, according to the SPD submittal, Dries acknowledges that on 109 acres, there are steeper slopes on the southwest of the site near the property lines and a ravine in the northwest portion of the site. A few streams and wetlands have been identified. In addition, there are 2 existing ponds, which by contract must be protected. These identified 37 acres are economically impossible or contractually prohibited from home site development. Given this, as well as 10 acres of roadways, front entry landscape areas, and 6 required retention ponds, there are 62 acres of developable land. To maximize profits, Dries desires to take advantage of a loophole in Loveland zoning by asking for SPD zoning, which allows them to put as many houses on the land as possible. This was referenced on page 191 of the agenda packet, where Dries acknowledges that they need 209 homes because without it, the project would not be financially viable. The other 62 acres of developable land, Dries wants to build 209 houses, or 3.4 houses per acre. The land as zoned requires 1 acre lots. This proposal would not even qualify under medium density. A chart has been provided to the committee exhibiting the density comparisons between the proposal and RLD and RMD. This land could be much more easily designed as RLD, protecting more of the land and trees. In the Dries proposal, all the trees and structures on the developable land will be removed to fit large houses on very small lots. Larger lots would allow for mature trees to remain on the home sites. To qualify for SPD zoning, the land must be developed in a way that requires ingenuity and imagination, which in fact we know is not true because this development is a cookie-cutter design of another Dries development called Elliott Farms, and very similar to White Pillars, Butterworth Glen, and Brandywine. What Dries is offering is nothing new. This type of development already exists in 3 large Loveland neighborhoods. Because of the Type 2 annexation used to annex the land, homeowners will be taxed by both Miami Township and Loveland. Homeowners in this community will be subject to Miami Township, the City of Loveland, Loveland Schools, Children's Services, MRDD, Claremont County Park District, Claremont County Senior Services, Great Oaks, Public Library, and Loveland Fire and EMS taxes. This double taxation scenario will produce homes that will be so highly taxed that homeowners will likely oppose tax levies and potentially produce a failed development because of the high taxation. The negative income stream to the city of Loveland and the additional 2,124 car trips per day as outlined in the Dries study, as well as the comment made by the SHA Engineering on page 194 of your packet, which says, SHA Engineering realizes that traffic is the biggest issue that is being faced in Loveland. Should be enough to vote no on this development. I would also be remiss if I failed to speak to preserving the history that is Grailville. On page 15 of the new comprehensive master plan, it speaks to how we should emphasize and capitalize on what makes Loveland unique. Can you stand with me? By memorializing people, places, and events throughout Loveland to preserve our history and stories for generations to come. Once this land is bulldozed, destroyed, the House of Joy, and all the other buildings, this rich history will be forever gone. We cannot and must, or we can and we must do better. This body is charged with following the zoning code and the comprehensive master plan when making decisions. We know that the land is currently zoned RLD, and the request is for a zoning change that you have no duty to grant. A new comprehensive master plan is in the final stages of development. Page 22 of the plan under expansion opportunities, it says expansion opportunities for the city may arise for new development potential. This may include low density residential development to the north and east of the city. Annexation is done should be strategic and carefully thought through to ensure that it will benefit the residents of the city of Loveland. What Dries is proposing is not low density, and there is no evidence that this will benefit the current citizens of Loveland. Quite the contrary. As committee members, you must put your personal opinions aside and analyze whether this is good for the citizens of Loveland. With that in mind, this is an easy decision. A no vote is the only proper vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Gary Benish.
Hello, Gary Benish, 1748 Wittenberg Drive. Been on the Tree and Environment Committee for about 28 years. Might be a little biased. Possible. When I look at the plan, I see I like their spirit of it. It seemed to incorporate a lot of green space and saving precious sensitive areas and that kind of thing. But in looking at the layout, I still have a lot of flags. Is this just a minimum scrap they're throwing to appease everybody, or is there really a balance there? Now, I was at the comprehensive plan meeting of 2002. And in that plan, I always remember, and it was a professional city planning leader that they had, how he laid it out. He said, okay, if you built every square inch of land in Loveland, how many houses could you fit? And I believe they actually came up with a number. And then they said, okay, now is that where you want to be? Or would you like to say 70% and preserve the quality of life and the psychological benefits that we all moved here for? Now, what I think is important is that we also concurrently have a proactive plan that identifies the green space that we want to preserve in Loveland, so we maintain that balance. And I'd love to see it about 30% and say that is build out. That means we're built out. Now, I was driving through Norwood a while back, and what I saw was these old run-down houses, and it was very packed. I didn't see a lot of open space. I saw, little plots of land here and there, but it was very stressful going through Norwood as it's aged. And isn't that what we're hearing here now? They're worried about the congestion and how stressful it is as we just build out everything we have. Now, I think that with time, we have to look ahead. Is that the future of Loveland? That we're now going to, at some point, we'll see the housing aged. We're all packed in. We're stressed. And I think at some point, we'd have to draw that line, say, okay, 70% is build out. And now let's look at our older neighborhoods. Can we do some, with the new development, be in those areas that need to be renovated? In fact, I saw this in Cleveland, where the inner city, of course, was really run down and old, and the houses were dilapidated. as they cleared out like entire sections and restored it into new modern day housing. So they were actually updating the overall housing of Ohio, but it's most expedient to always use the open space to develop a new area. But at some point, can we just say, okay, we're built out now. We want new development, but where we want it is in our older neighborhoods that need updating, that are now getting run down. So that's what I have to say about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have, well, Matt, I'm going to skip over you and go to have you talk last. Tom Scovanner, is he?
That's an interesting change in the methodology. You've heard from many citizens of Loveland and the residents who live adjacent to the ground. Their voices are virtually uniform in their opposition to the Dries development plan. In analyzing your vote tonight, the first question, who do you represent? That's an easy question. You will represent Loveland. You are the Loveland Planning and Zoning Commission. We do not question the Grail's right to sell the land. We do not question Dries' right to buy the land or to develop the land. However, we all strenuously question, as should you, the desire of Dries to develop the property to more than triple the number of houses allowed under the current zoning. No entity has the right to expect a zoning change. Remember, you do not represent an out-of-state development corporation. You do not represent an out-of-state property owner. You represent Loveland, Ohio. Any analysis of this or any development plan is what is best for Loveland. We all know Loveland's infrastructure is already overburdened. You've heard that all before. You've heard it tonight. The sewage capacity is totally inadequate to support the development of 209 houses. To borrow a phrase from the Declaration of Independence, it is self-evident that our roads are insufficient to support 209 additional houses. Over 2,100 car trips, plus multiple school bus trips, the added construction traffic, the infrastructure improvements required for this proposal will just add to Loveland's misery of gridlock. This proposal adds nothing to Loveland's residents of quality of life. This is just another cookie-cutter housing development, something the draft master plan specifically states we, the residents of Loveland, want to avoid. The housing mix proposed is already available in Brandywine, White Pillars, and Butterworth Glen. Each has patio homes and each has open spaces. A development wholly allowed under the current 1 acre requirement would still protect the ravines and the ponds because that land is economically undevelopable. This corporate developer is claiming that the proposal protects land, and any development that would be there would have to do the same. There's nothing unique about this development in that sense. While we understand the 1.92 units per acre claim as to density, that is for the entire project, and it is a statistical game that all developers play. The actual density of developable land is closer to 3-to-1. This development will also further strain the Loveland schools. It is disingenuous to claim that these houses will not add to an already overburdened school system. Just a couple of years ago, the Loveland School Board proposed a large increase in taxes to fund additional schools. Was that because we had enough schools? I don't think so. The developer acknowledges this, but tries to deflect that burden by claiming, well, that won't happen for several years. Does that matter? The same can be said about other services. The fire department isn't worried about any strain on their services. Is that why we were just asked to approve an additional fire levy? We have excellent fire protection, but are we going to be asked to provide more funding in the future? Well, of course we are. Adding 4 to 5% more population will require more police, other services. Our city manager, he does a great job in managing our costs. We really do, and I appreciate that. But at some point, growth requires more costs. And because of the duplicated taxes that these houses would have to pay, we're setting Loveland up to have a more difficult time paying or passing those levies in the future. Simply put, this proposal will not be helpful to Loveland. In short, a vote to recommend this proposal from Dries by this committee will be a vote to overwhelm Loveland's infrastructure, the roads, the sewage, the schools, support services, and others. It would be contrary to the current zoning, against the guidance of the current comprehensive master plan, and even more so against the newly drafted comprehensive master plan. It will likely create a neighborhood that will be double taxed and oppose future levies, and it is obvious to everyone here tonight, but one or two, that this proposal is against the will of the people of Loveland, the people that you represent. Your recommendation should be no. Thank you.
Finally, we have Matt Maines with Dries.
Thank you for your time. Matt Maines, Dries Homes, 211 Grandview Drive. Again, I hope you all have had a chance to read through the memo that we submitted. More than anything, if you have any outstanding questions, please bring them up. We definitely want the opportunity to answer them this evening. So I want to take some time to clear up some misunderstandings and some misinformation that I think is out there. The Grail has been a long-standing member of the community, and many of you have had the opportunity to enjoy their property. However, they are a private owner who has made an extremely tough decision to part with a portion of their land to help support their aging membership and pursue other initiatives, which is what's led us here. As discussed previously about annexation, all land is brought in as residential low density by code. This piece of land is earmarked for residential development, so the question becomes, is what is being proposed, is it consistent with the surrounding zoning, and do these property owners what do they have the right to develop? A portion of this property is already residential medium density, and aside from a small piece of St. Columban, everything else in Loveland that touches this property is either residential medium density or SPD with a higher density. At 1.92 units per acre, this is at the low end of what could be built on a residential medium density. So what is being proposed is very fair from a zoning perspective, and the SPD allows us to create a better plan. Shifting to the traffic, there was always a lot of opinions on traffic, which is why we rely on independent traffic engineers to present us the facts. We took the initiative and performed a traffic study over a year ago to understand how the improvements needed to be made. While we were confident in our findings, I think there were a lot of questions that were brought up and on how this was performed. So as a result, the city initiated their own study with TEC Engineering. And while it's not complete based on the staff report, what it does show is that what their findings are and what their numbers are consistent with what the report regenerated. And in their professional opinion, they do not expect to see any significantly different results from their traffic study. The next issue, infrastructure. Again, like I said, this is typically addressed later on in the process and not always hashed out into detail in the zoning, but some questions have come up, and so I wanted to respond to some of that. We have been working with MSD. In fact, we had a meeting with them just yesterday and have a couple viable options for the sanitary sewer that were an alternative to the one that they recently denied. So there are options there that we have available to us. The water service is going to be improved with the loop that's going to be created between O'Banionville and Oakland Road. And by law, we are not permitted to increase the stormwater runoff. There are agencies and reviewing agencies that are in place that do not allow us to overburden the system. They do hold us accountable, and they don't allow us to negatively impact the neighbors and the areas surrounding them. We deal with them on a daily basis, and they all hold us accountable, and I encourage everyone else to hold us accountable. Focusing on the planning and zoning aspect, the fact remains that there is a significant housing shortage in this area and a lot of the areas around here. Homes are going to be built in and around the Loveland area, and what this proposal is, this is what responsible planning looks like and what your comprehensive plan calls for. The property is well insulated from adjacent neighbors, and Dries is going to create an attractive streetscape. Rather than carving up more and more properties into unaffordable 1 acre lots with minimal or no open space in the community, we have proposed an efficient, creative land plan. It provides 209 homes within the city limits with over 30% of open space preserved. We are providing a variety of home styles and high quality amenities that will create a vibrant community and add value to Loveland. Finally, I want to make sure I highlight the journey of the Grail has taken to get to this point because I think it's important, the context to have. In 2014, the organization chose to close the retreat and through grants, they were able to negotiate the sale of 113 acres of their property to Claremont County Parks and took 25 to 35% below the appraised value. This would ensure 113 acres would be put into permanent conservation to be used as a park by the public forever. In 2017, 78% of their membership voted to sell the remainder of their land south of O'Banionville Road. After years of pursuing many different options, Dries was honored to be chosen by the Grail with the understanding that we would respect their values, maintain green space, help with Claremont County Parks, and protect the existing ponds and creeks. This plan allows us to do just that. The Grail has done their part for the community, and should this plan move forward, they will have helped preserve 137 acres of green space integrated with 209 home community on approximately 211 acres that they once owned. I'm very proud of the reputation that Dries has, and I think our customers and our partners can all vouch for our integrity and our willingness to do what is right. We have and will continue to work with Claremont County Parks to ensure that they can create their vision. We'll respect the Grail's values, and we'll make sure that this property is developed in a manner that is thoughtful and meeting with the goals and objectives of Loveland's comprehensive plan. This whole process is a long process, and what we're asking you tonight is to take the first step and vote to accept the proposed SPD. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have no one else signed up, so
There's no opportunity to add any comments.
no, if you've already,
Before I leave.
is there? I mean, let me have a show of hands of how many people would like to that have not spoken yet, that did not sign up on the agenda, would like to talk.
How many?
We've
taken over 3 hours of community input. I think we've been fair and allowing, and we will be taking some of their input in account.
Well, we have if we have only one, and I think you're the only one for it, so I'll allow you to talk for, again, 5 minutes, and you can come up with your name and address, please.
I am sorry I arrived late. I do appreciate everyone's comments. Sorry. I am Loretta Roque. I live in Miami Township. I am a Grail member. And I am very concerned about the Grail property as everyone else is. And I absolutely support all of your comments, all of your feedback. This is absolutely your public right to participate. And if this is not the best plan and you have a better one, if you're willing to purchase the property, if you honestly have a plan that says for $350,000, the House of Joy could be saved, I would absolutely love to see it and have it and share it with the rest of the participants of the majority that have found themselves in a position to be as careful as they can over the last 8 years when several of the local community members have turned down, and local Grail members have turned down several proposals, including from Turner Farm, for redevelopment of the property because no one wants to see change. But the fact of the matter is, I grew up on a farm. There were 5 of us. By the time, my older siblings are 70s and 80s, we're holding land that we can no longer afford to keep, and we have to live. They needed to support their pensions, and we came to the position where we carefully had to sell it as well. So if I could go ahead and read my prepared remarks, is that I am here to speak in favor of the special planning district, which does give you more control over a development. If this were single family lot development, they could fill in all those ponds, they could raise all the hills and just flatten it out and put those 1 acre lots. And when you talk about the area that's undevelopable, it'll just be part of one of those 1 acre lots. I'm speaking to you as a Grail owner and past employee of Grailville. I've also served on the Grail Council, Grailville Future Committee, and Grailville Implementation Committee. As in all families, our Grail sisters share differing opinions and experiences. Often we don't agree. However, in the case of the sale of the Grail land, the majority opinions and vote of the members supports the sale of this land for the greater good of the organization, which has members across the United States. It's very sad for Grail visitors to see the south side of the property decline and we fear that it is a safety hazard and blighting influence on the area. It is also financially draining and a liability. Unfortunately, local members want to hold on to the past and protect the green space they can see from their homes. They have also enjoyed the use of this land for personal and professional purposes over several decades. Non-grill friends and neighbors have also been invited to enjoy the land and buildings without any personal investment or long-term involvement in supporting the grill at Grillville. As several alternative proposals were brought forth, the same collection of local members formed opposition and defeated each one, including a sale to Turner Farm, as I mentioned, and the sale to the schools, although I understand the bond levy failed, and that's absolutely you're right. Why should the grill's wishes to sell not be honored when the majority of the members are looking forward to using the proceeds to further our nonprofit mission? I challenge you to look at your own homes and research the history of the land it was born from. The decision to sell to a developer was not made lightly, and only after ensuring the conservation of 113 acres in cooperation with the Clermont County Park District and the use of Clean Ohio funds. Realize over 300 acres are owned by Grillville, and 2/3 of that land has been saved or put in conservation. There are several acres that could have been included in this new sale but restricted from development. That strategy would have provided the opportunity for Dries to reduce their density calculations. The same configuration with the same number of units on a greater number of acres would produce fewer units per acre, obviously. Instead, we required a guarantee that the development would harmonize with the topography and natural features of the land, and required the developer to work with Clermont County Park District to provide access for the roadway, water, and sewer amenities necessary to create a new Clermont County Park beneficial to the Loveland community. That's over 100 acres. This overall concept will only increase property values in the area, and the failure to develop this plan will hinder the ability of the Park District to create public access and provide amenities. If this proposal does not move forward, the borough will be forced to consider fewer restrictions on the next sale, possibly offering a more compliant but less desirable alternative. We continue to value conservation efforts and wish to be good stewards of this land. However, this property is declining with each passing year. It will become increasingly difficult to maintain and retain the north side also, which houses the chapel, the oratory that we hold so dear.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
No, we're not taking questions. No. Yeah, no, we don't. No, we're not doing questions. So we're going to move into the next old business. We're going to from the public open forum. Real quick, does anyone from the city or on the commission need to take a quick break since we've been here for a while? Are we? I know some of you had snuck out a little bit. So are we okay?
I'm all right now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So next. I'm sorry.
I'll provide these later. That's not.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everybody for your very eloquent comments. I think you were all very well spoken. We greatly appreciate it. I think it was very thoughtful. I know it's very difficult to come up and speak in public. Some people it's natural, some people it's not. We greatly appreciate all the input from the community that helps us make educated decisions. So what we're going to do next is we're going to, there's no more public input at this point in time. We're going to open our own discussion for case 22-02 continuation for the special planning district application for Dries Homes. So with that said, is there anything from the city we need to do, Corey or anybody from the city we need to add to this, or how we got to where we are today, I guess?
I mean, I think I can just recap where we are. I mean,
we had we had the traffic study and things. Where we are with that. And
so the traffic study was commissioned literally, if not the next day, the day after the last public hearing. That's about as fast as things happen in government. In that regard, it takes time. A traffic study can take 45 to 60 days, in my experience. And they conducted the study on, it's noted in the staff report, they conducted the study on a sunny April day, pleasant weather. and they have some comments back. They provided staff with comments. They do not have the full analytics done, but those comments were provided in the report as bullet point items. They noted there were some variations. Some were higher, some were lower. They did include background traffic for Chimney Ridge and Blossom Hill, which resulted in approximately 50 vehicles altogether. TEC did the video recordation of the traffic count on April 12th. There was no rain, mild temperatures, and they state that due to the above factors, they do not expect significantly different results than those indicated in the original study, but they will continue to look at the data and complete the required analysis that we commissioned. Additionally, I think the Planning and Zoning Commission asked for some clarification on the number of schools. Loveland Schools Transportation reported that there are fewer than 10 from Turtle Creek, Valley Forge, and Pewter Court in the White Pillars neighborhood. And they did not, I mean, we're generally, 95% of those units are attached dwelling units, but there are some single family homes that are on those streets as well. So the action required if you elect to proceed is 115102, requires you to either vote to adopt a motion recommending initiation, vote to continue, or vote to not recommend. Those are your three options tonight. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay. So I'd like to open up for discussion amongst ourselves in terms of how our feelings are, what we like about the concept plan and what we dislike, what our thoughts and feelings are about opinions on this. So Brian, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I was the person that asked for the third party traffic study at our last meeting. That was the primary comment from the majority of the residents that shared their concerns. I'm a resident. I don't get down this way as much as some of you probably do, but obviously I'm aware that there is a traffic and congestion problem. I was surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I was surprised. The report came back and it did back up their numbers. I insinuated that I thought it might have been misleading that they didn't include some other neighborhoods, and so I'll have to apologize on that note. It seems as though that the study came back and says that the numbers are the same. I guess the root question probably, and this is my fault for maybe not getting down to the root issue or understanding the root issue, but and maybe the traffic study, when it does come back, will have the information in it. I think it would be interesting and helpful to understand what a reasonable amount of traffic is. And when traffic engineers and city planners put together plans and they set forward goals, what are those normal traffic numbers? Just to state that it's not going to impact the number of current cars during a particular time and day, I don't know that really solves our problem. Everybody obviously knows there's a congestion and a traffic problem. So, there's probably more cars than the capacity allows. So I just wanted to set the record straight there and point out that the developer's numbers were correct and that their traffic engineer was thorough in his investigation and came up with the same numbers. There was a comment that the traffic study hadn't come back. We did get some preliminary feedback to state that it was consistent. Also, as you know, when this whole thing started, I wasn't very educated on the Grail. I've become more educated on the Grail. I'm not opposed to SPDs. I'm not opposed to making a change. I do think I'd like to see the development to be a little bit more in tune with maybe the history of the Grail and maybe more inclusive of some of the natural conditions, more unique in its feel and its nature. Those are my thoughts.
Al or Andy, want to chime in?
Yeah, I can speak. So I think I raised some questions around at the March 17th meeting around some of the reasons about how we got to this point from bringing this land into the city and now having it before us for a SPD consideration. And so I think some of the things that I've wrestled with, because this is a complex issue, as we've seen with a lot of the different dynamics. So I keep going back to a lot of the questions around, bringing. They mentioned Grailville is 300 acres, but right now we're only looking at a third. Only 1/3 of that is inside the city of Loveland. So what you have to sort of extricate that from the issue there. That there's just a portion that we're dealing with, and it does come in as a residential low density, and that's what I was sort of wrestling with at the March 17th meeting. Was why do we have that as our rule? Is that there must be some guiding principle as to why we start there, and then in this case, what my concerns are, we're going from undeveloped land, zoned residential low density, and essentially maxing it out through the SPD process in a matter of 3 months of this land coming into the city of Loveland. So I have concerns about just the rapid nature of a change like that, acquiring this land through annexation into the city limits and then immediately developing it to a point where it is maxed out. I think the memo from Dries has a point in here that I kind of find I question this. Basically, in concern number 3, much of the 37 acres set aside for open space is undevelopable land. In the explanation, which is a reasonable explanation, this sentence pops out to me to say, our primary goal with the SPD is to maximize community open space and use these spaces to their full potential. I don't doubt that the reason to configure an SPD is to allow for creative use of the lot design and allow for different zoning configurations within the larger project, but I don't know that that's the primary goal to maximize community open space. It seems like the primary goal of the SPD is to maximize available lots and available housing. And so I don't know that that's, I think we have to look at it from our side as that the primary goal from the city to have an SPD is in the code when it talks about creative site planning and adding historical value and considering community benefits. And I don't know that this proposal really meets the true spirit of that at this point. And I think we do have to be held accountable, as one of our speakers said in an open forum, to the residents of Loveland, the city of Loveland, to our code, to our comprehensive master plan, all of which point to the existing zoning as being what is desired in that land. So that's just one argument from me. I think there's a lot of other things that make me a little uncomfortable. The infrastructure issues, the stormwater, and the sewage is not exactly established as part of this plan. I know that that's not necessarily, that's part of the process going forward. I understand that, but it would certainly make me feel more comfortable if it were more spelled out, the solutions to those issues. And then lastly, I think there's another point in here in the memo about the strain on the school system. That's not really my point. My point is that these homes, it says 135 traditional homes and 74 patio homes. All of these homes will be phased in gradually over a 4 to 7 year estimate. So by moving this forward, we're essentially saying, let's put East Loveland under construction for the next decade. And that worries me in terms of just the long-term repercussions relative to some of the traffic concerns, of course, but really just more coming to the quality of life issues that we've heard from today. And again, I love hearing from residents when we are faced with something that people feel passionate about, especially when people are able to channel those passions into logic and sound reasoning. And some of the things that jumped out at me was, it's a gem, it's expansive green space, do something brilliant. I mean, that is definitely not up to us to do something brilliant, but certainly we don't need to do something rash. And I think that from the time period of the time that we annexed this into the city of Loveland and today, I feel moving this forward would be a rash decision.
Yes. Would you like to weigh in, Mr. Kressler?
Yeah, part of the reason land is brought in as low density is it's basically a placeholder. If you're coming from the interstate into Loveland, you notice where the Loveland, welcome to Loveland signs are? They're part way what you think is into Loveland. Well, a bit of that, as you come into Loveland on that right-hand side, all those shopping centers, if they came into Loveland, they would come in as residential low density. So it's basically a placeholder, because what Loveland doesn't want to do is annex land and have to live with the zoning that a township that basically has no zoning would have. So that's kind of it is what it is. But one thing that hadn't been considered is, and I know I'm listening to people outside of this, there's a real big problem with the patio homes. And I've got a neighbor who lives 2 doors away from me. And 2 years ago, he put his 50-year-old son into a nursing home. Last year, he put his wife into a nursing home. He would love to sell his 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage home in our subdivision. But he has nowhere to move to. He needs to move where he can. And these patio homes are what he would like to have. He doesn't want to live in an apartment building. So the patio homes, they say, well, there's other ones in Loveland. They're not for sale. They're onesies and twosies here and there. So we've got from the 50s, 60s, 70s residents that moved into Loveland, as I did 50 years ago. We're ready to move. But my generation has no place to go to stay in Loveland. So this design does meet a demand and a need for our senior citizens. And they live in my subdivision, they'll be able to afford these patio homes. And actually, you kind of need to be about the same dollars, otherwise you're paying taxes on the net gain. And that's just one of the things that I look at this is, they're close together, they're patio homes. And that gets down to the question I asked at the last meeting, how many homes in White Pillars and that, in the patio homes, have children? Turns out it's 10.
10.
This is about half the number of patio homes. So those 74 homes will probably generate 5 kids for the school district. I did some back of the envelope calculations. That'll generate probably over $250,000 in school district taxes. It'll probably cost the city the rate they pay for educating a student less than $50,000. So the school district for these patio homes will pick up about $200,000 income against the students so that's kind of a double hit for that. But now we have to look at the whole thing. And I forget which one it was. Mr. Gary Bench. He said he's quoted where a lot of cities are tearing down, and maybe a 70% build out of homes and 30% greenbelt is kind of a nice balance. I'm looking at theirs, 37 acres, that's 34%. So they're at a number that seems to be a reasonable working number. So, a lot of it's valleys and ravines, but I grew up on Long Island in the 50s, and Levittown went in there, and it didn't matter how deep the ravines were, how high the mounds were. They just built corner to corner, edge to edge. So, and I think after hearing Loretta's comments about how the Grail is trying to preserve as much as they can and still provide funds for their members that need to have care.
Please.
She's on. Excuse me. She's on the board.
Wait. Hey, just hang on 1 second. Okay, we respectfully listened to everybody here for 2.5, 3 hours. Okay, please. We need to talk amongst ourselves. You're here to listen to us, but I respectfully request no comments from the crowd at this point in time. We've already listened to every comment for a long time, and I just want you to let us do our job up here, please. We are all volunteers. We are not getting paid to sit up here. Trust me.
Well, we do get $1 a year.
Oh yeah, $1. So,
Okay.
yeah. Really?
Yeah.
You do?
We used to. We don't anymore.
You said I don't.
One year I got $4 and another gentleman got 6, and we said we'll do anything for $1. So anyway, so I think the Grail is trying to work responsibly for the community, and has put some limitations on Dries to what they can do and must do. So now, as far as the sewers, you'll have to tell me. They can't really get their building permits until they have sewer taps, and they won't get the sewer taps from MSD until this sewer line thing is worked out. Correct?
Yeah, the sewer is controlled by MSD.
Right. Now, I do know the Polk Run plant is way over capacity. They did a big expansion there a few years back. So it's not the sewage plant, it's getting the stuff to the plant. So for right now, I know the concerns, and if people want to table it for now until we get our traffic study and some other things.
I mean, for me personally, I would prefer to take a decision tonight, one way or the other. I think that it's not really fair to all the parties to continue moving this forward if there's a decision to be made, and to decide to take this to council or not. Mm-hmm. And I think because we're essentially holding up the process by not taking a decision. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I'm a fan of patio homes too. I think that they are a good product in the market, but I don't think that we are necessarily accountable to the housing market in this case. You know, I think we need to look at more in line of this plan in consideration with the residents of Loveland and what's best for Loveland, not necessarily what's best for, you know, the current housing market. I do understand what you're saying in terms of the patio home as a commodity being valuable and maybe something that's appropriate inside the city. And another point that is made here, and I think the representative from Dries made it in the comment in open forum, is that there are, you know, there's available development areas outside of the city limits. 200 plus homes will be built in and around the Loveland area in the coming years. And it's advantageous to Loveland to make sure they are developed in a well-planned community within the city limits. I agree with that statement, but I don't necessarily think that means we need to take action to move forward and capture those 200 homes right now in this configuration and on this site.
The problem is, under low density, somebody come in and say, I'm going to build 109 homes, and it's done. They don't even come before us. They just go for the permit.
Yeah, and I think that's the risk. You know, that's the dilemma for sure.
Can I ask a question? To the applicant?
Yeah. You have to. You're gonna have to bring them up though. If you want to.
I'm sorry. You know, in reading through this, it sounds like they asked for 5 proposals. 2 people gave them proposals. You were one of the 2. Obviously, your proposal was the best.
Correct. Yeah.
In the agreement that you made in the planning processes, do you have a plan for low density? I mean, you knew you were buying low density, or was your plan always to end up here?
Well,
we bought with the understanding that we were going to be moving into the attempting to annex into Loveland, and then we don't have a plan for low density. We spend a lot of time working through the numbers, and this sort of housing is again what people want, what the market demands.
But it could be done in low density also.
It could be done in low density, but in our opinion, that is not a good plan and not a good prospect moving forward. Again, it's big 1 acre lots that are unaffordable to most people, and it doesn't create the community that a SPD type plan would create. And that's kind of what our thoughts are.
Thank you.
I got one. If you were to develop a 1 acre lots, would you pay the same price for the total package of the land?
I don't know the math off the top of my head. I would have to guess that we would have to kind of reconvene and reconsider things. There's so much, to consider there that it's, impossible for me to stand up and make it,
So the Grail would have to take a cut.
Yeah. I mean, again, our belief is, this property owner and the Grail has rights, and everyone else has developed around them as resident and zoned as residential medium density and SPD, and they're the last one to the table now. So now they're kind of stuck. They're stuck with the traffic. They're stuck with, everything else, and they have rights as a property owner and now as a citizen of Loveland to be allowed to develop in a manner consistent with what that zoning is. Any other questions?
I appreciate it.
No?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate the sensitivity that the Grail went through. I appreciate they have a right to sell their land, and I appreciate them looking for a good use for the land, or trying to find a good use for the land. I think that's their right. I appreciate Loveland's citizens and their concerns with the use of the land and trying to preserve it. I think we can't lose sight of the fact that there is Claremont County has a large park right beside it, and that's been preserved as part of that land. So I don't want to, imply that none of this land is being preserved as what it was before. The Grail did sell it to the park system. I do think, though, that in my opinion, while I appreciate Drees's attempt to do the best they could at preserving some of the integrity of the land, I think there could be some better efforts towards that. I think what I'm hearing from the community is there's a lot of history of the Grail that to put houses there and not think through it a little bit more on how we can preserve some of the history, some of the heritage of the Grail, I think is important. I know there's some language in here about that. It's kind of, and I know this is the beginning, but it's not very specific. I think there could be some better efforts at changing the density, relooking at that. I don't know whether we need to go down as far as medium? What does it come in as? Low. Whether it needs to go down that far, I don't know. I don't necessarily would necessarily say we'd have to do that, but I think removing some of the density and replacing it with some other elements that maybe show the history that, and again, I'm not a person to plan for that, but more of the history of the Grail and more of what they were about. So when people do, if this does go through and it gets through, this is a long process, guys. This is not something that happens overnight. Trust me, we got sewers and everything else to get through if it's ready to go through. But I think it's necessary to show some of the people moving in the neighborhood, they would know what the Grail was, and it wouldn't be just lost and blown away with a bunch of houses. And then somebody says, oh, the Grail used to be here, and nobody knows about it. So now with all that said, and I appreciate that. The reason I wanted the person to speak, and I apologize, I forget your name, it wasn't written down, is I like to hear both sides. This is very one-sided. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying we got to hear both sides and understand both sides so we can make an educated decision up here of what we want to do. So I think, in my opinion, I think that there needs to be a better effort towards making a little bit more in understanding what some of those areas are going to be and remove some of the density so we can have a little bit more control over what this land is going to be, and preserve it for what it once was. Again, there's a park next to it. They bought that. I appreciate that. I mean, we would all love everything to be a park and other uses, but the landowners can sell it for what they want, and we have to adapt it and try to figure out how we can, utilize that to the best of our ability. So, I don't know. We got to make a decision here. I think we do have to make a decision. I really don't want to table this tonight, or not table it, but move it forward. I don't know if that's going to gain anything or not. Given the opinions right now, it's up to you. But yes, Ms. Kressler, you like
I got one thing. I think the Grail should be given great credit. They have 300 acres. They're only selling 100. And they need that money for some of their other things and some pensions and things. For them to put 100 acres into a city park and then maintain the other parcel and only sell a third of it, I think is really noteworthy. They could have easily have sold the parkland too. If you're a corporation, you would have sold half of it and then use that as a tax write-off.
They also
the park on the other. That's done all the time. They didn't have to do that.
They also could have shown up to a meeting.
So, but I'm just saying is, there's been a few comments against the membership and the board, which I don't think is fair. Which has nothing to do with us, but.
Well, with that being said, I would like to make a motion not to recommend the initiation of the SPD.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Kressler?
No.
3-0.
3-1.
Motion carries.
3-1.
Next order of business is communications. Do you have anything from the city?
No, sir.
Sir.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Adjourned at 9:55.
Muted.
Dave. Hopefully.